Welcome to Paranormal M, your portal to haunting mysteries and spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now and tap the bell. Stay updated on our captivating episodes. Are you ready to embrace the unexplained, weird, animal-like thing? Since I'm a kid, I've been susceptible to all energy, or whatever you'd like to call it. After I started living with my boyfriend, who's also pretty susceptible himself, we've been learning more regarding the paranormal stuff. So, for the last 2 or 3 years, we were able to feel the atmosphere, like where we live if said energy was bad or spooky. We think that maybe some sort of portal opens up, and it allows things to get wild. As when we get that feeling, awful things happen in our city, like violent crimes, abuses, and fires, and you name it. I'll get into the portal thing in the next paragraph. The first time I saw something weird, I was with a friend walking my dog. It was almost midnight, and we felt observed. We were at a parking lot. My dog was nervous. She was looking behind her all the time, and she was silent, which is pretty rare as she's a Shih Tzu, and God knows they're insufferable little creatures when barking. We decided to go back home. As we were walking toward the exit, we saw this polar bear kind of an animal. It was big, like really big. The thing was extremely fast, but it seemed hairy, white, and skinny. The head reached the top of a car window nearby, and the legs were outwards. I don't really know how to explain it, but it looked like the knee bent backwards. It had a hairy tail, and the hair was silk-like. I didn't get a really good nor bad feeling about it. It just weirded me out. It looked like an animal with no intrinsically moral compass. My friend, who doesn't believe in paranormal, asked me if I saw the same. I said yeah, which confirmed that I'm not crazy. A year or so later, I was at my window with my boyfriend. We were drinking tea while looking at the moon and talking. The night was quiet, and we felt peace. We were facing the same parking lot. This time, the night was clear. It was a full moon. And suddenly, my boyfriend points between 2 cars and says there's a big dog there. I take a look, and we both realize it is not a normal animal. It had a soft glow to it. The thing ran fast again, disappeared in less than 3 seconds. But it seemed fatter than the last time. I told my boyfriend about what happened with my friend, and we tried to figure out what was that thing. Last week, the atmosphere was feeling awful again. There was an increase in paranormal activity around us. We had to seal our home to avoid bad energies. We were out with our now 2 dogs, and our youngest started bawling. He was scared, but trying to put a brave front. We looked in the same direction, and the same animal-like white figure ran extremely fast. And this time, with no cars hiding it, the thing ran toward another direction. Not where it ran the 2 previous times. This time, we were able to see the animal closer, and the fur looked almost like feathers. But it looked like a mammal. I really don't know. All the times we couldn't remember the head and face of the animal body. We believe some portal opened up and allowed bad things to enter this realm. And in the process, some quote-unquote animals roamed free. Have you ever seen something like it? Do you have any idea on what it might be? Negativity is everywhere, and you should be aware of the consequences. I've been thinking about something I'm seeing more often in spaces like this. Way too much negative energy. may be familiar with the threefold rule. Pretty much what you put out comes back to you 3 times over. So, if you're spreading hate or maybe judgment, you're inviting back that negative stuff into your life, but amplified. The threefold rule is part of the law of return. Energy boomerangs. It's not about some cosmic judge smiting you. It's just a natural consequence of how energy flows. And here's where it gets real. Spewing negativity doesn't just bounce back. It opens doors. You're not just piling bad vibes on yourself. You're practically rolling out a welcome mat for something darker. Evil, chaos, bad luck, random sickness, unexpected expenses. And there are things that thrive on bitterness and hate. You're feeding them, giving them a foothold. There's people in these subs who genuinely have real gifts like intuition or insight or sight, and have had experiences that don't fit the everyday mold. It's what makes subs like this so different. But not everyone's gonna vibe with that, and I guess that's okay. If something doesn't click for you, asking for clarification can keep things chill and open up a real discussion. Like, hey, can you tell me more about that? It's simple, but it works. Especially when somebody's asking something that doesn't make sense to you. That's because it's meant for the OP. Another clue is if OP never responds. That's usually because they freak out at the accuracy or are caught in their lie. If you don't know how to ask for clarification or don't want to, it's best to just step back and not engage. There's no point in feeding the negativity or worse, inviting something you can't uninvite. It's risky. I see so much negativity on Reddit, especially in paranormal corners, and it often comes from people who don't get it, don't have the context, or think that they do get it. Ignorance or arrogance aren't crimes, but they don't have to turn into a flame war either. We can keep this space better by lifting each other up instead of tearing down, or worse, cracking the door for something truly nasty to slip through. I saw somebody adamantly arguing and name-calling who within a week posted elsewhere that they'd lost their job because they had no sick leave. They didn't have a way to pay rent. Someone else with a similar attitude got kicked out of school and their mom passed suddenly. A quote-unquote ghost hunter got their show canceled, and they should know better. Another went to a demon sub to see how they could get rid of the demon they had attracted and had no idea how they attracted it and so on. Actions have consequences. I know it's hard to be nice, that's the point. All these negative entities have influence. If you understand that, you'll save yourself some trouble. Be strong. Don't give in to temptation. And if you must be mean, just know that there's always consequences, and sometimes they come when you least expect them. That's because giving you a false sense of security increases the shock factor and the negative emotions associated. Voices in the hangar. I was at an airfield. It's called Throckmorton in Worcestershire. We use this airfield as a training site for driver training, and I keep a number of the training fleet there, primarily stored in Hangar 1. At about 8:30 in this morning, I let myself in, and because the rain was hammering and the wind was blowing, I closed the larger roller shutter door behind me. Today, Hangar 1 has 12 4x4 vehicles of various makes all parked in a line. Their rears are about a meter away from the hangar wall. 10 minutes later, I've got my head in the back of a shotgun, taking an inventory of its contents while I distinctly heard a male voice with a northern accent. It called out, "Okay, give it a try now." As I'm the only person in the hangar, I was a little surprised to hear this. I I look up and down the line of vehicles, but I see nobody. So I walk to the front and look up and down, but still cannot see a soul. From here, I can also see the rest of the hangar, and it's sort of patiently obvious I'm the only person here. So I venture, hello? But I only get silence back. Now, I grew up with ghostly goings-on. Voices and doors closing mysteriously when no one's about. It's never bothered me before. But I'm getting spooked. I open the shutter door. It's a loud, clanking monstrosity you can drive a Cessna through. So nobody's come or gone without me noticing. Now I'm really getting spooked. So I quickly jump in my car and I just head off to the main gate to see Darren, the site's facilities manager. Darren immediately sees that I'm not my usual bubbly self, and I tell him the story. Yeah, that makes sense, he says, before telling me that during World War II, Throckmorton was a base for Wellington bombers. On one occasion, the Wellington was having engine trouble, so they pushed it back into the hangar. They started to have a look at it. One mechanic was on the wing. He was tinkering under and cowling, and his mate was standing by on the ground next to the prop. When the mechanic on the wing told his mate to give it a try, the other swung the prop. The engine started immediately, and the lad overbalanced and fell toward the blades, which made short work of him. Darren went on to say stuff often goes missing in this hangar number 1, and later on reappears a few days or maybe even a week later, or it gets moved about. But voices are very unusual. I had to go back and I kept the roller door open and the engine on my car idling. Creepy old lady. So this is a repeating pattern I've noticed, ever since I started living in apartments. In my very first apartment, the year 2000, I just moved away from home and I was living with my new husband. There was an elderly woman that lived in the same complex, and from our patio we could see her watering her flowers down to the left of us. After living there for about a year, we heard this huge commotion outside. There was a fire truck and sirens, and we could hear screaming. When we looked outside, we could see the fire department trying to break into the same unit the weird old lady lived in. She had called 911, and she had barricaded herself inside the house. They informed her that they cannot leave until they'd cleared this apartment. We could hear her screaming, "No, I will not open it, leave now," over and over. Eventually, the office manager came down and said she would open it with a key. That's because the firemen were starting to go to the front door with an axe to get inside. I can still see the leasing manager opening the door and running backwards to let the firemen in quickly. Once they were in, they were able to clear the unit quickly. There was no fire, and the old woman refused to give an explanation as to why she would call for help and then lock herself inside. So we just kind of shrugged it off. We only lived in this apartment for 2 years, and in that time, we discovered that the flowers she lovingly cared for on her deck were indeed plastic. She had them in a pot with dirt and wrapped them around a fence. But when we noticed that she had blooms in the middle of winter, sort of walked by her unit and noticed that they had been glued and placed there. They were faded, but she kept the dirt in the pot wet. I like this lady. When we finally decided to move, we had relatives in and out of the apartment helping load stuff up. My sister-in-law asked me who the old lady was outside. Thinking nothing of it, I said, "What old lady?" And I went to take a look. The old woman from the other unit was standing out in the middle of the road. She was wearing nothing but a house dress. She was barefoot and messy, unkempt hair. kept my responses short and simple. But she looked concerned, even worried. The last thing I remember is us packing up the last of her furniture just before dark, and she was still standing alone in the middle of the road with that blank stare. She's watching the moving truck leave. Now, I'm not superstitious per se, but for whatever reason, the next few years of our lives were a downward spiral. Relatives dying, losing my job, things like that. Basically, the next 2 years, our next apartment just sucked. So, well, when we got out of there, we moved into our third apartment. And here's where it gets weird. I'm walking my dog, and way in the distance I see an old lady in a little house dress. She walks out of one of the units and slowly walks into the middle of the road. The whole time I could swear that she sees me, looking right at me. Actually gave me chills. But I told myself, this lady's far away on the other side of the tennis courts. No way she can see me. But I was wrong. I was so weirded out by the fact that there was no one else around in the middle of this nice spring afternoon. I almost turned around and backtracked, just to get away. I told myself I was being paranoid again, that there was no way this woman could be looking at me. So we got right into the lot, tried behaving as if there wasn't somebody standing alone in the middle of the road, and tried to walk around her. She just starts talking. As we're trying to quickly walk away, she didn't even address us, just, "That's your dog? I haven't seen you. Where do you live?" So I figured this lady is nuts and off for meds. I just started walking faster. I figured maybe she doesn't like dogs, and, well, I've had people complain that they don't like animals, so I shrug it off and keep moving. I hear her still talking behind me, and after we had walked well past her, something about dogs. Never got that image out of my head, and even weirder, we go to that park every day. Never saw her or anyone matching that description again. Less than a year later, our dog died. He got sick around the time that we saw this creepy old lady. I again lost my job for different reasons. But the timing was the same, and we again had a death in the family. Very loud, sir. Relax yourself. Now my question is it possible to see an entity related to bad times coming? Or is the entity something that can cause a curse? I know it sounds ridiculous. It couldn't have been the same old lady, but I can't help but wonder. When a hunter becomes the hunted. I know this is a rather cliché statement. One I'm sure has been used many times before. But I'm going to present are experiences that I've lived through, or ones that have stayed with me for a very long time. Backstory, very short. I first became interested in ghosts, paranormal phenomena, and supernatural events maybe when I was 10-ish. I had read a book that really piqued my interest. The first years of my journey into this part of my life, at that time, meant you went to your local library and looked through their indexes for anything you could find. What I did find was, well, just lackluster, boring, and, well, not helpful at all. My solution was to join a group and go out once to see what it was all about. Like many, I expected to see full-body apparitions and paint peeling off. Maybe things being thrown around. But no, nothing happened. Fast forward to about a year ago. My early experiences taught me to lower my expectations and to treat any location that has claims of haunting, could be experienced, or meet the standards of tests that we use. All investigations should start without expectations. We, in fact, do not ask to be shown hotspots. We've done that for years. We've collected many cigarette smoke orbs, buzzing insects, or or eaten alive by mosquitoes. We've had some physical things like walking and knocking or banging. We've invited another group to join one night, and when they asked for a knock or a tap, it came almost immediately. As interesting as that sounds, we noticed one member missing. So we knew where the bangs were coming from, and no, we didn't give that group a hard time. Only had a good laugh. After many investigations, some long quiet night, we started dark, depending on the season. We called the night at 4 a.m., and all that time, not once did I feel anything. No attachments, no odd feelings, no voices telling me to hop on one foot and yelling ow for an hour. Following a very active investigation, dark entity or possible demonic activity, we were spent by the time we picked up and left. Sometimes later I started noticing odd feelings when I was at home. Rooms that had never had any feeling to it became melancholy. I had a closet in the hallway and the door would open. I would just close them. And that happens, of course. I would close them and go on my way. The feelings in my home started to take on a very odd feeling. Like I walked into a room with people fighting. Like at times I could hear yelling. I got up to look and it stopped, and this continued for about a week or so. Every ghost hunter should have a good friend who's a medium, or can feel a presence around you or a location you live in. Long story short, she did find an entity, one I would identify as an imp. Not dangerous unless you try to chase it into a wall. They are mischievous little assholes, and their presence could mean a stronger force could come through. In my case, it did not. And I know this wasn't very exciting. However, one should always be careful when investigating or exploring. Things can wait in the dark, paranormal or human. Or things can wait in the dark, paranormal or human. I know of at least one investigator who was shot while in a homeless camp and he didn't know he was there. And another who spent 3 years in the hospital because of injuries he suffered from a location he dove too deep into. Always be sure if you should investigate. Just because you could not mean you should. What? You heard them. Dream of purgatory. Maybe. One of the strangest and most memorable dreams I had. I think it was purgatory, looking back. In my dream, I was in a city. It looked both old and new. It had shop windows that were dusty and sort of anachronistic advertisements like the old Guinness beer murals. But it was in a modern environment. It had a huge air of neglect and emptiness, washed out colors. There's no one else there, so I thought. I found myself making my way to what I can only describe as a train station. It had seats and TV screens, dusty and fly-speckled. In one of the seats, staring at the screens, was an obese man. He had an aura of gray about him. He was overweight and staring at the screen, wearing a dirty off-white t-shirt and baggy jogging trousers. I tried talking to him, but he didn't see me. He just stared at the screen. I felt waves of depression and apathy from him. I had the strongest feeling he'd passed away, with no one to mourn him. Some squalid bedsit somewhere. Next to the train station were steps going down like a subway. The stairs went down to a landing. Turned 90 degrees, then went down again. Repeated. It formed a square spiral. The stairway was choked with rebar, chunks of concrete and old trolleys. Almost impassable. From deep down below, spiky, many-limbed creatures I then woke, but the dream never left me. Never faded like a normal dream. Ruminating on it, I feel like it was a glimpse into limbo. The fields of Elysium, or whatever passes for the space in between this and the next. I wonder if the man I saw wasn't somebody who passed and didn't know what he had. Anyway, I figured I'd share this dream with you all. My sleep paralysis demon bit me. I've suffered with sleep paralysis since I was a child. Throughout all my years of dealing with this, I've had some truly horrific experiences. However, the one I had a couple of days ago has been the worst one yet. I woke up not feeling the greatest. I was up a few hours, and after not feeling much better, I decided to lay back down. I was gonna just try to nap it off. I was turned to my side, facing away from her bedroom door on the far left side of mine and my husband's king-sized bed. I felt my body relax. I fell asleep rather quickly. The next thing I remember is slowly opening my eyes and seeing our bedroom wall. That and the door that leads to our bathroom, as the bathroom door was closed. I then tried to move and couldn't. As I've been through this many, many times, I was already mentally telling myself that, well, I was in sleep paralysis. I needed to focus on trying to move a little, such as wiggling my fingers, a tip I learned online. However, I'm already feeling scared, and I can feel my heart racing. I then hear the sound of our bedroom door open, then it closed behind me. That was as our bedroom door makes a very loud and distinct popping noise. I immediately thought that it was my husband coming in to check on me. Thought he'd be able to get me to snap out of this horror. That thought quickly vanished as I heard heavy stomping running around the bed until they stopped directly in front of me. I see a very large and tall black figure standing in front of her bathroom door. This is the same figure I encountered in almost all of my sleep paralysis experiences. I can never make out any features. Before I can register any other thought, the large figure lunges at me. I feel the heavy weight of this thing on my body, and it feels like it's crushing me, especially my ribs. As previously mentioned, I'm still laid on my side with both my arms pulled up and my hands are tucked underneath my pillow. By now, I've closed my eyes, trying so desperately to move. That's when I felt teeth burying into my ribs. I don't know how to truly describe the awful feeling. It's an intense feeling of pressure, pain, and almost a tickling sensation. And it's one of the worst things I've ever felt. At this point, I'm trying to thrash away and trying to scream. I'm just completely paralyzed. I feel like I have no air left in me, and I never am able to make a sound. I can literally feel this thing's mouth opening and closing in different spots along the side of my ribs. And at this point, I'm mentally screaming and pleading to snap out of it. Next thing I know, I sit straight up in my bed. My heart's racing. I'm broke out in a cold sweat, and I can still feel tingles in my ribs on my left side. After my eyes dart around the room and I find it to be completely empty, I lift up my shirt to inspect my side. The skin's not broken, but the whole left side of my rib cage is bright red. I've done a good amount of research on sleep paralysis and understand the scientific explanation for it. But waking up with physical marks from these experiences is brand new to me. I've had a ton of anxiety when it's bedtime ever since this. I find it a bit hard to believe there's nothing evil or demonic about these sleep attacks. I have giant red marks across my ribs as I talk to you. Wish it was demonic, though. Well, I take that back. I do not wish it was demonic. But then at least I could confront the reason I encountered the lady of the bank. I have had many paranormal encounters over the years. I find them fascinating and frightening sort of a way, if that makes any sense. This experience, however, was pure terror for me. For context, I need to explain our local legend. I'm from a tiny town. A tiny town you only know about if you live here, or close to here, or know somebody who is here. On the outskirts of this tiny town is where I live. This is also where a back road known as the bank is. This road is extremely windy and narrow. The type of narrow that you have to lay over as far as you can on the rare occasion another vehicle is oncoming. It is surrounded by thick forest on one side and a steep bank that leads to the creek on the other. Local legend says about 60 or so years ago, a woman was traveling alone on this road late one night. It's believed that she fell asleep at the wheel, ended up going over the bank. Her car was found close to the creek and was horribly mangled, and sadly, she or her body were never found. Some say she went through the windshield into the water. Others say she stumbled out of the car into the water. Regardless, it is believed that she met a watery grave. The creek in this area is said to be bottomless, and that's why she was never found. After this, there were many reports of others driving along this road after dark and seeing a woman standing along the side of the road, only to vanish when you would slow down. Others swore a woman would just appear in their car as they were driving solo down the dark road. There were so many tales of this ghostly woman. She became known as the Lady of the Bank. Jumping to a few months ago, I had attended a gathering at a building in this area. I was told there was a wreck on the main road, and the road was temporarily being blocked off. I was tired and just wanted to get home, though I felt horrible for those involved in the accident. I decided to take the bank instead, since it would take me past the accident and let me out just a couple of miles from my house, but mind you, I've driven this road many times before, mostly in daylight, a couple of times after dark, but never alone. Of course, I was told the stories of the Lady of the Bank, often enough, so this was all when I was growing up, but honestly, it wasn't in my mind this night. I had other stressing matters taking up my thoughts as I drove. I had my music playing at a low volume. I was carefully gliding through the curves. The only road-related issue I did worry about was hitting a deer. My thoughts were harshly interrupted by loud ding ding ding. My heart jumped to my throat as my eyes darted over to the inside of my car. That's when I noticed the seatbelt icon lit up and I finally realized that it was the alarm that, well, somebody wasn't wearing their seatbelt. I was bum-fuzzled. I checked to make sure my seatbelt was securely wrapped around me and fastened in place. Just as the loud dinging started again, I once more glanced over to the passenger seat and nearly fainted. There was a figure in the passenger seat. All I really could make out in that split second I noticed them was long, dark, wet-looking hair, mostly covering the person's face. They appeared to be looking forward out the windshield. I remember a scream leaving my throat as I slammed on the brakes. The car skid to an abrupt halt, causing me to lurch forward, then being pushed back by the seatbelt. I can remember hearing my heartbeat in my ears as I look up and slowly over to the, once again, empty passenger seat. The annoying as hell dinging stopped. The seatbelt icon was no longer glowing on the dashboard. At that point, I stomped on the gas, deer no longer being my biggest concern at the moment. Made it home without further incident, other than my family, friends, some locals. They all believe the lady of the bank tried to hitch a ride home with me that night. Well, heart goes out to her. I won't be taking that road after dark again. I think an entity jumped into bed with me. This incident happened to me on the night of the 18th in March. I'm not somebody who likes to boast a lot, but the uneasiness just went over me. Let's start off by saying I live in an earthquake-prone area, although earthquakes from the past few years have been less frequent. And not only that, they've been lower in magnitude. It was a busy day. I was tired to the point that I couldn't sleep even after getting in bed. So I just tried the ancient method of closing my eyes and pretending to sleep while facing the wall, which was only a few centimeters away from the bed. Not long after, I felt a sudden jolt, making me sway toward the wall sharply. My entire bed had moved toward the wall and hit it. If I were to describe what that felt like, I would say that a person ran and jumped into my bed. So my immediate guess was that this was an earthquake, one that had ended quickly. I quickly take my phone, and after checking and confirming that there wasn't an earthquake, I was left wondering what it was. I have a post here from months ago, and reading that you know that, well, sleep paralysis is not a new thing to me. This one was different for me, though. I couldn't open my eyes, couldn't move. I could only hear the creaking of furniture and the whirring of my ceiling fan. So after a while, I realized I could move again. I just changed my sleeping position and tried to sleep, and was successful in doing so. In the morning, while having my tea, I remembered my bed being shoved to the wall. But for some reason, it was perfectly where it used to be. Well, now I wonder if I was just imagining things. Though I don't feel as if I was too tired to imagine this incident happened. What are your thoughts? Demon creature. I don't know how to start this, but one day about 6 years ago, I'm coming home from school. My routine had been to drop my bag off in my room and go outside. Now, the way my hallway is set up is at the end of the hallway is my brother's room. My room is on the left, walking toward it. On this day, he had left his door open. So as I go to drop my bag off, I see inside my brother's room. I see two transparent people, a man and a woman. They're talking to this creature. I call him 23 because I spoke to someone on a Ouija board and they said that was their name. I froze and I felt terrified. They all turned to look at me. They turned at the same time and faded away. Not too long later, I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like I was being watched. I looked up and I saw 23 standing at the foot of my bed. His head was almost touching the ceiling. I looked him up and down and said, "Nah, fuck this," and rolled over. I know it wasn't sleep paralysis because I distinctly remember moving. My house has always felt off. Since I was a kid, I've heard conversations when no one was there. I've seen a hand many times trying to grab me. I've also had very disturbing and detailed dreams. After moving out, these experiences have entirely stopped. I had a drawing ready to post, but I can't attach it. 23 is essentially a skeleton. He has pitch black skin, but there's no room for organs. Looks like he's wearing a white mask, huge bloodshot eyes, and a big forced smile. He looks angry, but anxious. It's hard to explain. He's about 7 feet tall with long, lanky limbs. My work is haunted. Mine too. So I think I've shared before that my house is haunted. But now I'm started to think my work is too. Cry face. I'm going to share a few experiences and also my best explanations for them. Because even though I believe manager, let's call her Carly, and I were closing down the store. We had both just clocked out and started walking to the doors when we heard something that sounded like a person was inside the locked store and dribbling a basketball, which we just recently started selling. Carly was ahead of me and shouted, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "I'm not." To which she turned around and immediately stopped smiling. "Well, I'm not going over there." And I was like, "Neither am I, the fuck." And keep in mind, while we're talking about this, the sound is still happening. We have a clear view of where the sound's coming from. There's nobody there, and also nobody else in the store except us. The sound suddenly stops. Book it out of there. My, best explanation is that somebody was outside banging on the door. But we ran out the second the noise stopped, and no one was around at all. My other manager, we'll call her Mary, we were closing. I was closing up my register because I'm a cashier, and Mary was talking to me about something. But out of nowhere, a box of Slim Jims that we had at the register just fell to the ground. This one is obvious. It was probably just placed too close to the register. Or not. This one was just the other day, and it was me, Mary, and my coworker Sally. Sally was on her lunch break, so I had to open up my register and cover for her. As I'm helping people, I keep seeing somebody standing behind me out of the corner of my eye. I turn around thinking it was a customer to help, but no one was there. I played it off as just a person who was there, but left before I turned around, but they must have ran their asses out if that's the case. Now the one I really can't explain is looking around the registers for anything to fix when I saw candy on the bottom shelf. So it's not like gravity was pulling it down. It flew across the aisle. I just kind of put it back because, rude. But I want other people's opinions on this. Author's story. Okay, so something has been bugging me lately, and it's freaking me out to where I broke it off with the woman I was seeing. The one with the imaginary friend goblin that she swears up and down absolutely existed. So she finally got a new place after several years. Beautiful house that she had been saving up for and pays to stay there full time now. I was excited too because she was living in some slightly cramped apartments before this, making private time hard to come by. It's also too big for, just her and I, so I was supposed to actually move in to help rent, but not after these past few weeks. She settled in fine without me. I'm slightly jumpy even if it's somebody else's new place. My imagination can go to scary places. And again, she never understood how much her goblin encounter she claimed really happened really put me on edge. Third night I'm there, we crash late around 2, maybe 3 a.m. with some drinks. I wake up at around 4:30ish with her passed out and I gotta take a leak. The bathroom's right across her hall and lights on. I piss wash my hands. Excuse me. That needs a comma because that means a very different thing. But I'll just go with it. I piss wash my hands, hit the bathroom lights off when I hear it. It literally sounded like a limping dog walking around downstairs, but so subtle that I shake it off. I hop in bed and drift off and hear it again faintly. And she owns no pets for the record. This time growing louder till it seemed it was just at the bottom of the steps. I'm about to wake her when, boom, she sits up wide awake and screams, "No!" That's while she was crying faintly. I'm just staring at her and I just try to calm her down, asking what's wrong. She said that she must have been having night terrors, and it's normal when she first moves into so much space, begging me to move in with her as soon as possible. So I calm her down, deciding not to mention anything about what I heard to not exacerbate things. We're just sitting up chatting till sunrise. Now both of us are wide awake. 2 nights later, I'm back over. We do our usual late-night drinking and some intimacy, then clock out. I wake up needing to piss hella bad again, and it's right around 4:30. She's not in bed. I head to the bathroom, piss, shut the bathroom lights off, and head toward the stairs. That's when I hear her downstairs talking, I assumed on the phone. I could make out her soft giggle saying, "I love my new place. Can't believe you're still around. I'm so happy that Sophie," I called out as I was heading down the steps. She suddenly jumps and runs towards me saying, "Oh my God, I thought you were out." "No, just had to pee. You coming back up?" I remarked. "Yeah, I'm just finishing chatting with my old girlfriend from college and telling her about the house. I couldn't sleep. I'll be right up. Give me a few minutes." "It's fine. Take your time. It's no big deal." And at this point, how she was acting, I'm thinking she's seeing an old guy friend and starting to think too much about it laying in her bed. That's when I turn to my side and I see her phone is still upstairs right here. She has no spare. Wouldn't need one unless she really was lying to me, but I just can't fathom that she pretty much tells me everything. It's been a wonderful almost 2 years that we've been together. I want to confront her about it, but I can't, and the vibe is awful the next day and we're all just hanging out. She doesn't want to go anywhere, just stay inside, maybe watch movies or listen to music. She's not depressed though, actually. In almost a manic state, which she has in the past, but not like this. Her personality is completely different than I've ever seen it. We do our usual drinking to the night before crashing on her queen-size mattress. This time I pee before I crashed, praying to just, sleep through the night. Suddenly, she's poking me to wake up at around 4:30 again. I'm a bit irritated. I was dead asleep this time. "Why'd you wake me? What's wrong?" I ask while I'm half asleep. She's out of the covers with her arms around her legs, rocking back and forth with a huge, playful grin. "Well, I love you and I just want you to be able to play with me. It makes me feel younger." "Are you high, Sophie?" I asked, which is fine, as yeah, sometimes we indulge together, but nothing hard. She shakes her head no, and again she's acting really fucking odd, like I've never seen. "No, I'd share if I wanted you, but how much I love you and I believe in you." "Is that fucking it?" I ask, half asleep and irritated to be woken by this shit. She gets a little bit upset and says, "No, it's not it. I just want you to meet him." Thinking she's talking about some new guy friend, and I'm kind of a bit pissed, and I ask, "Meet fucking who, Sophie? Are you cheating?" "Oh my God," she exclaims. "No, I just wish you'd meet Teekum. He's back." My heart sank and my stomach went into knots. "No," I said. Smiling, she says, "You're still scared. Why? He wants to meet you." "Sophie, stop." "I love you, but no more goblin talk, please." With tears in her eyes, she says, "You said you'd be like this. It's okay." "Good." I turn over and she turns to her side when at the foot of her bed, I see for just a second long, slender, green hands sticking out with nails black. They recede under the bed quickly as is seen. She is still pouting like a little child, and that's when I can't take it. I literally grabbed my keys and clothes still in my boxers, and I just drove off. I've not attempted to make contact with her since, nor can I explain or care to find out what happened those nights, especially that last one. I seriously had to get this off my chest. I've barely been sleeping. And you're welcome to use it as a follow-up for the first one, where it's just old stories, but this is the last I'll likely ever talk about this event or her. I think you're missing out. Some people have baggage, this one has a goblin. Sounds better to me. Does anyone know what this could be? I recently moved in with my best friend and her family. I knew her house had some weird activity before. I've always grown up around it, so it didn't bother me. Although lately it's been getting pretty bad, but I'm not sure. We've been seeing this thing outside, and it doesn't really do anything other than make noise. The worst thing it did was shake the camper and poke my best friend's ex-boyfriend in the back when he was laying down on the porch. Recently, we've been seeing odd things. Like the first thing was a chunk of meat wrapped in newspaper that was left on the porch while we were still out there. We were hanging out in the hunting blind. We were hanging out in the hunting blind, so we wouldn't, or rather we would have heard somebody come up the steps or had seen them walk by through the holes in the tent. Excuse that. It's winter and the meat wasn't frozen. It was clearly fresh and it wasn't there when we walked by the first time. Then after that, we had a friend over and we were just in the hunting blind again. We heard footsteps. At first, my best friend had her hand down one of the holes and something grabbed her hand. I brushed it off and reassured her it had to have been something else. At first, I said it was a big bug. Or maybe she'd touched something else. We heard footsteps, but no one was out there with us. And later, we all heard a man's voice, and we all heard a different voice. Heard my best friend's dad, and my best friend heard her friend who was silently staring at us. And he just heard some guy. I yelled out to Dad that we could hear him, and insisted that he was going to jump out any minute. It didn't happen. We sat in silence and stared at each other. And we all heard a man's voice again, just whispering directly next to us. None of us were talking or even had our mouths open. We started freaking out at that point. We looked outside one of the tent holes to see the porch, and no one was there. The porch light turned on, we had to ask our guy friend to literally jump up and down just to get the light to turn on. It's really old, and I know over the years it's been harder and harder to turn it on. We packed up our stuff in the tent and immediately went back inside. About 2 days ago, we found these large, and I mean large, footprints. They were by me and my best friend's bedroom window. We share a room at the moment and we don't have curtains anymore. There was only one set directly in front of the window. They weren't there originally, and we walked by to get to this hunting blind. They were long and thinner. They weren't like, I don't know, naked footprints. It was just shoe prints without actually any detail. We brushed it off and just went inside. Also, we just said that we need to get a new curtain as soon as possible. Things have always been happening, but they've never been this consistent unless something really bad was about to happen. And I will likely update this. And usually on these little things that would happen, like hearing the cats when they're asleep next to us or something. Or just footsteps and knocks outside. Even tonight we heard 3 knocks on the window or something. Does anybody know what this could be? Multiple people have seen a creature around our house, including me. The best way to describe it is as pale with human skin that looks like it has a large animal forced into its human skin. I don't believe in skinwalkers, and I think it could be paranormal. We also see lights outside. Seems like it has the potential to be dangerous too, but I'm not sure. Another thing that happened was me and my roommate was messing with a Ouija board. I don't really believe they actually work. I was just joking around, had it spell out something stupid, then toss it off the bed to mimic a ghost throwing it. I never said goodbye. Later that night, I very clearly saw a little boy run into her aunt's room. I just ignored it and went outside to tell my best friend what happened. I've seen a little boy spirit before, but that's when I used to live with my parents, so I don't know if it's connected. Paranormal paranormal encounters that keep getting more consistent. I've always grown up around weird and unexplainable experiences. So, knowing that, moving in with my best friend they were having a lot of weird encounters on the property. It didn't bother me at all. I've been coming around for 5 years before I started living here. But I only experienced little things, like hearing footsteps, the doors opening on their own, basic things like that. I only actually saw something a few times, and it was over this summer. And I was basically already living at her house because of how often I was over there. So here are the following stories from before I moved in. The first time I ever saw it was at night, and my best friend, I'm just going to refer to her as my sister. She had gone inside of the house to grab something. I was standing on the porch, Dad was out with the dog and flashlight. So that was how I was able to see it. I saw a creature with pale, tight skin. Didn't seem to fit its bones at all. Looked like large animal bones shoved inside human skin. It was crawling on all fours toward the road, so it wasn't facing me. Didn't even acknowledge me. I just watched it until she came back, and then it was gone. It wasn't like any animal or thing I've seen before, and I assumed I was just seeing things. So I didn't tell her until a different night on the porch. She told me that she'd seen it before too, and it's always been around. She never said anything to me either because she also thought she was just crazy. At my sister's graduation party, I had gone out to the swing set with this girl. It was just us two. Everyone else was still on the porch or inside the house, and we're pretty far away from everyone. We were shouting and screaming, trying to freak them out. We were trying to freak them out from where we were, since all we had was a light on, and at the time they didn't realize that we had gone there. It was more like manic laughter and witch voices, not actual screaming, so they would know for sure it was us. Still a scary thing for a group of cross-faded people to hear. Although I was fully sober at this party, so I know what I saw was real. I kept seeing something running around us in what I assumed was circles. I completely ignored it. Me and this girl started talking about getting my sister and her boyfriend at the time, now ex, thank God, to play a trick on the people sleeping in the camper, since we saw them head in for bed like the four of us had planned. Soon after, we saw a figure walk around the camper and shake it. We assumed that they got to it first and stayed where we were. Eventually, after maybe an hour or so, we were talking about heading back. It was around 2 or 3 a.m., maybe 4. We looked over and saw a tall human figure. It was walking around the pool. They were too tall and skinny to be anyone other than the girl that I was sitting with. We tried to think logically and assumed it was my sister's boyfriend. We decided to walk back. Once we got back on the porch, my sister's boyfriend ran up the steps toward us and started yelling at us for fucking with them. My sister got up to the porch and said that she'd watched us come off the swing set, so it couldn't have been us. Apparently, we saw what they saw, but someone was underneath the porch, poking my sister's boyfriend in the back. And this story isn't something I witnessed, but it was my sister and her boyfriend, which we're going to call Evan. He at first didn't believe my sister about what was going on, and threatened whatever's been outside by saying that he was gonna touch it. Strange threat. He was way more detailed than that, but I don't feel like going into detail on what he told this thing. That's when they both saw it. It had somehow gotten up the porch and it peeked from around the corner of them. My sister said that she was so shocked and terrified at what she saw that she hardly put together the face of it. She just knows that it was pale and extremely skinny. When I first moved in and was dropped off at the house, I was pretty much completely alone. I went down to the kitchen to get food. That's when I heard my sister's cat, Tesley, meowing. When I got to him, I still heard him meowing, but I was looking at him. He was not meowing or moving his mouth at all. Something told me not to look outside no matter what I heard. I stayed with him since I assumed that he'd be scared too. I went back into the room and I heard constant footsteps. I knew it wasn't the cats because I know what the cats all sound like, and it wasn't them. I used to sit on the porch at night every night until I would, without a fail, like every night, hear things moving on the porch or something walking around even though I was completely alone. I would hear voices that I didn't recognize, but I just guessed I was hallucinating since, well, any hallucination I've ever had been tame. Normally, I would just hear conversation that I couldn't make out or something like that. They stopped after I moved out of my parents'. I'm assuming that they were caused from stress, so now I don't think it was just me hearing things. It started to get more consistent and obvious recently, like it doesn't care who sees it or hears it. It's like it wants us to do something. The scariest experience was when we were on the porch with a friend, who we were going to call Sean. We were in the hunting blind and we were smoking together, but I wasn't too high. Sean wasn't high at all, and I believe he has a much higher tolerance than my sister and I. We were talking about it, mocking it, and just joking around everything that we had seen. My sister just stuck her hand outside the tent and pulled it back in almost immediately while screaming that something had touched and grabbed her hand. We had just read this one. Anywho, I assured her it was just a bug or something. Better than the centipedes attacking my feet currently. If you ever hear me pause, that's because I'm terrified of getting stabbed again. Anyway, I assured her it was just a bug or something, perhaps a centipede. I wanted to believe it couldn't have been a creature. For a while, we just heard footsteps and such until we all heard a male's voice speaking to us. Can't remember what it said. I thought it was Dad trying to scare us, so I yelled out to it that we could hear it. Silence. I continued to insist it was just Dad messing with us. But nothing happened until we heard the whispering. Honestly, now that I think about it, it did sound a lot like Sean, but I was looking at him and so was my sister. She started crying because she heard the same thing I did, and so did he. He looked confused and terrified at the same time. He wasn't talking at all. And after that, the light turned on without anyone being out there. And we've done jumping jacks just to get that light to turn on, and it barely works. Packed up everything and immediately went inside. Only a few days ago, we went outside to go into the hunting blind for our activities. We went out to the sliding glass door that time, and nothing on was on the porch. And I know because I was trying to ice skate in the kiddie blow-up pool thingy, and I know for a fact it wasn't there before. Came back to go inside, and we stopped. Dead in the center of the porch was a chunk of fresh raw meat wrapped in newspaper. We were on FaceTime with someone. They also saw it, but he insisted that we must have missed it, but I know we wouldn't have. It had been snowing. We were outside long enough it would have started to get covered in snow. We went inside and asked my dad about it. We've absolutely no newspaper. No one in that house would have wasted meat for a prank. Especially a prank that didn't even get a scream out of us. The newspaper wasn't even wet either. Only maybe a day before that instant, we saw these large, and I mean large, footprints. They were right in front of her bedroom window after being on her way inside after hunting blind activities. No one's shoes looked like that. They were long and thin, like clown shoe feet or something. They didn't lead anywhere, and there's no trail. there before either. Oh, and we don't have a curtain either. Very fun for us to find that. For some reason, all of this talk of snow makes me sad. I miss snow. The house isn't that old, but the property has a lot of history. Not entirely sure what I was told, but perhaps the property could be haunted because of all the horrible things that happened here. People have died in this house, and sometimes things do act up, like Thanksgiving night, for example. I was in the bedroom by myself. My sister was in the bath, and her nephew was trying to sleep on the couch. I heard the sound of someone walking in and out of the house, doors opening and shutting. Just a whole lot of strange things. Her nephew heard it too, claimed that he had seen things staring through the window watching him sleep. We don't talk to him about what we've seen, but he described exactly what we have. And this was like multiple times, honestly. But my sister said that she heard somebody knock on the door and her younger sister shout, "Mom." And Mom was clearly asleep on the bed. She wouldn't have done that since it could wake her up, and this was around midnight since she texted me about it when it happened, since at first she thought it could be me. But also I knew I wouldn't make that much noise while Mom was asleep. Now her sister was asleep at that time too. There was no footsteps or anything at all, even though you'd be able to hear somebody walking up to the door. And another time, most recently, we're messing around with the Ouija board, which has only worked for me once. Didn't work this time, so I spelled out something stupid and threw it across the room without saying goodbye. Later that night, I saw a little boy running into her aunt's bedroom. Went outside to tell my sister what I saw, and I didn't have anything happen related to that kid after that. We randomly get a strong feeling that we're getting watched, or not to look outside or into the yard. I've never been afraid of the dark, and I've had this feeling before with my parents, so I'm not sure what else to think or feel. That's all I have for now. I might update if anything else happens. I feel like I miss the snow. I bet you the people in the snow don't miss the snow. Late night at the pizza shop. When I was in college, a couple decades ago, I worked at a mom-and-pop pizza shop. As you entered the main dining area from outside, you could see the sales counter, the door into the kitchen as well as the hallway into the restroom. It always felt like someone was watching me from the restroom area. But I assumed that it was just something about the mood or the declarations putting me slightly on edge. It was darker than the dining area, so maybe the transition from a light to dim environment was what did it. Over time, I started to see that customers would keep glancing in that direction, just like the employee would. We had a few regulars who formed friendly relationships with a lot of the employees. I'd asked one of them why he kept looking toward the restroom. He told me that he felt somebody was watching him from there. That experience confirmed for me that whatever it wasn't just me or my comments dating the perceptions of other employees. But nothing ever came of it. Back in the kitchen, I always felt like I was being watched from above, as if something was clinging to the ceiling and looking down at me, or like something was peering in through the tiny window at the door leading into the alley behind the shop. We really only went back there to take out the trash, or maybe when my coworker wanted to smoke, and I never had anything bad happen back there. One night, I'm in the kitchen prepping a batch of dough. That's while a coworker made pizzas in the front of the shop. Out of nowhere, the hair all over my body stood up, and I felt extremely afraid. Nothing had happened. I had no reason to be afraid, but I was terrified. I'm a bit ashamed that I went into the pizza-making area and asked the other guy to trade places with me. I made pizzas for the rest of the night. My coworker finished prepping the dough and cleaning up the kitchen. But That night creeped me out pretty badly. Never felt random fear like that before, and I've not felt it again since that night at the pizza shop. I realized that this could all just be caused by some weird mental state I was in at the time, and that the environment could have just been a bit creepy, causing others to respond to it as well. But after so many years with little to no similar experiences, I still wonder if anything supernatural was happening in that shop. Boy, do I miss pizza. I'm tired of the son of a bitch in my house. Parenthesis, rant. The house was blessed. My then boyfriend, now fiance, moved in. Or, as I've come to address it, he stopped bothering us. I'm now 23 weeks pregnant, and 3 weeks ago, he came back to annoy the shit out of me. I was 20 weeks pregnant with my first daughter. That's when I first encountered him, and now he's come back to be an invisible pain in my behind. Don't mind me sounding like a woo-woo here, but these things don't scare me. I'm used to not feeling alone in completely empty rooms. I grew up with the paranormal activity, and so I'm tolerant of it, as long as there is peace. However, in this instance, he is truly trying me, spiritually and mentally. It started with hearing my nickname being called at unholy hours of the night. Spooky, absolutely, but I still slept like a baby. My stuff going missing, then magically reappearing in bizarre, how did you get here places, and appliances randomly breaking out of nowhere. All this was irritating, but I prayed over the house, did the whole shebang and everything, and it stopped. Well, for all of one night. Then, at 3:30 a.m. one night during a bathroom trip, bang bang. Loud-ass thud bangs in my roof like a burglar or something was trying to find a way in somehow. I don't know, that's just where my mind went. Naked and afraid, I tried to sneakily peek through my curtains to see if I can find any shadows and alert the appropriate people of criminals. But nothing. Even had my mother check the property cameras in that general area the next morning, and nothing. Okay. Maybe it's the entity trying to spook me. Very funny. Whatever. Skip a night and we're back to 3:30 a.m. bathroom venture. Specifically coming back from one, and I'll explain my house layout loosely so you understand my thought process. Bathroom leads right out into my living room. The front door basically inside my living room. So walking back to my room from the bathroom would put my back directly facing the front door, which has a rectangular stained glass window in the top middle of it. Now again, I'm walking back to my room. 3:30 a.m. Bang. Very loud bang on the bottom half of my front door. I freeze, naked and afraid again. I immediately turn around in fear that there's a burglar watching me from the window and he's kicked my door because, duh, nobody makes a sound like this at 3 a.m. looking through people's doors and windows. I fear for my life that somebody saw me and now wants to break into my house. I look, and nothing. I sneakily peek through curtains, and also nothing. My mother again checked the property cameras, one faces my front door directly, and nothing. Now I'm pissed. I'm not even afraid. To me, this thing is way less scary than someone trying to break into my house. Its only effect is somehow it tends to induce irrational anger and frustration between my partner and I, and also my daughter's nightmares, which are constant, and kind of severe enough that she is full-on hyperventilation and anxiety and panic attacks before sleep. And then, when she wakes up from a nightmare, I could ignore it if it would just basically leave my daughter alone, but clearly he knows this is the only way to irk me, to mess with my child. Before writing this post, I broke out the holy water, blessed my toddler, my fiancé, and even the cat before going out of my room and demanding it get out of my It's got no place in my house, within my family, or around my unborn daughter. For all of you listening out there, well, thanks for listening.